You know, I always thought the story of the old town square was just a story. Something the old-timers told to make us feel special. A bit of local color. But then, they started the renovations on the old courthouse foundation last fall. And they found it. A copper box, sealed in 1903. It wasn't full of coins or deeds. It was letters. Dozens of them, from the people who lived here then. And they all told the same story, but from different corners of our town. See, in the spring of 1903, President Theodore Roosevelt was touring the country by train. His whistle-stop tour, they called it. And his route was supposed to bypass our little town completely. We were too small, too far out of the way. But fate, or perhaps a stubborn mule, had other plans. A landslide up the line, near Johnson's Pass. The main track was buried for 2 days. The presidential train was rerouted. Right along our little spur line. They'd have to stop here for water and coal. The telegram arrived at the station master's office at 3 in the morning. The town had just 12 hours to prepare for a president. Now, you have to understand. This was 1903. Our town was, like others in the day, a little divided. The folks on the hill, the merchants and the mill owners, and the folks down in the flats, the railroad workers and their families. They didn't always mix. They used different churches, and sometimes different stores. At times there was a tension you could feel in the street. But the news of the president's visit. It was like a lightning bolt. Suddenly, it wasn't about hill or flat. It was about our town. The mayor, Mr. McGee from the Hill, practically ran down to the flats to find Michael O'Leary, who seemed to be de facto in charge of the rail workers in the area. They met in the middle of Water Street, where else? According to the letters, they didn't even argue. McGee said, "We have a president coming." O'Leary just nodded and said, "What needs doing?" Even the Queens, who represented people who seemed to have fallen recently on hard times, were there with their entire families ready to lend a hand in any way they could. And that was it. The Hill women brought bolts of bunting and ribbon. The flat women, who seemed as tough as any man, climbed ladders and draped every building along the route. The mill owners' sons and the railroad workers' sons worked side by side, building a makeshift speaking platform from fresh cut lumber right next to the depot. The town band, which had been half empty for years, suddenly had musicians from both sides of the tracks, rehearsing Hail to the Chief in the livery stable. When President Roosevelt's train steamed in that afternoon, he didn't see a divided town. He saw the entire population, every last soul, lined up together, cheering. He gave a short speech from that rough-hewn platform. He talked about citizenship, about the strength of community, about the American spirit being forged in places just like this. But the real magic happened after his train pulled away. They didn't just go back to their separate lives. They had a picnic, right there on the depot grounds. Food from every kitchen, shared on one long table. They danced to the band's music as the fireflies came out. That night, the idea was born. To remember this day. To remember the feeling. They passed the copper box around, and everyone, from the mayor to the youngest rail worker's apprentice, wrote down what they saw, what they felt. They sealed it in the cornerstone of the courthouse, a promise to the future. We always wondered why our town felt different. Why we never had the deep divisions you see elsewhere. We thought it was just luck. Good people. It wasn't luck. It was a choice. A choice made in 12 frantic hours in 1903, when a train got rerouted and an entire town decided to show its best face to their president. And in doing so, finally saw its best face